Good afternoon, everybody. Hope you're having a great weekend. Let's dive straight into the weekly prep. So, we had some news out of the Vice Minister of China saying that the US and China have reached a consensus on key trade issues after candid and constructive talks. Shocking, right? Not so much being sarcastic. We kind of expected this to get resolved in some way. Of course, uncertainty in the market will lead to selling. We saw that in April. But throughout all of the China US tariff talk, there's been a consistent theme toward working towards resolution. And at the end of the day, I'm not a macroeconomist or anything, but what we do know to sum things up is they both need each other. So while that can create turbulence in the markets with uncertainty on how that will, shake itself out, ultimately it's been consistently shaking out in a positive way so far. So with that said, the fear in the market has been and continues to be an opportunity to buy the dip. We've seen that all year long. Every single time we've sold on any kind of news, the market just keeps going higher. And bears will say, well, eventually this isn't gonna end well. The thing is, there's a lot of money to be made on the upside until that is the case, or it might never be the case, right? So the markets are designed to go higher, and as long as we continue to trend, that just is what it is. You just keep trading it higher. So we like to be tactical in how we approach the market and nimble, but also, just trade what's right in front of us. Right now, dips have been bought. We navigated this volatility very well. I'm very happy with how we performed within this. This is not an easy market condition to trade in. Yes, we just end up resolving higher, but this on an intraday basis can be very tricky and difficult to trade. I'm very proud of the way that we navigated that volatility over the last couple of weeks. And now we're out to new highs and likely going to be gapping up probably somewhere between 4 to 6 basis points higher. So that will put us around somewhere between 68.20, 68.40, possibly higher. Of course, we don't know until we know for sure. But just what some of the market is implying for this gap up is showing around, I think, 0.6, so 6 basis points on the upside. So we'll see what happens. It's obviously fairly positive news. We have a really heavy week coming up in terms of data, earnings, and we still have China and U.S. speaking. I believe it's Tuesday. I should probably double check that. Let me just double check that with Perplexity real quick. I'll just bring this over here. Our Trump and Xi meeting this week. I believe it's Tuesday, but that's what's in my head. Thursday. Okay, see, that's why you double check. All right, so they are scheduled to meet on Thursday, October 30th in South Korea during Asian Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit, the APEC Summit. Okay, so anyways, we already have the kind of headlines out from the weekend that there's optimism there. I think China said with the rare earths that they're going to delay it a year. So there was concern out of that. They said that they'd make a substantial soybean purchase. So the main takeaway, without needing to know all the details, is that certain things have been pushed off, and there's an overall positive outcome with the talks so far that they're working on. It's negotiations, right? So you're going to get a lot of headlines that look really one-sided. That's just how sales works at the end of the day. But ultimately, as you can see, they're working toward meeting in the middle, and in whatever ways they can are working toward resolution. So that's an important part. As far as economic data goes, we have would have a busy week, but we still have the government shutdown going on. So we'll have FOMC on Wednesday, but this is a very interesting FOMC because the Fed has already said they're kind of flying blind a little bit right now because they don't have as much data. Now we have the CPI data, but there's still other economic data that's not been released. So there's likely going to be more uncertainty around this meeting, which could be both good and bad, or just not really that important, right? Like I think traders might not give it as much weight as you might typically, unless there is a significant change that is as a result, which would I think be pretty unlikely, but you have to be ready for anything. So Everything else, we don't really know because we need to see headlines and see if the government shutdown gets resolved, if there's any hope for that. So we'll move right into earnings. There's a lot of earnings. We're right in the thick of it. It's kind of the playoffs this week, as I would call it. We've got the big ones coming up with Meta, Amazon, Apple. You've got Google, Microsoft as well. So a lot of the big earnings will be coming out this week, as well as a bunch of others that are going to be very interesting and definitely tradable. So, like, let's see, some that we might be interested in. PayPal, I'm holding a swing position in that. I didn't add back half that I took off for profit. We have earnings coming up, so I just want to see how that goes. Caterpillar is always interesting. Coin, Reddit, a couple others that stood out. Exxon and CVX were swings I was watching, but we have earnings coming up, so I'll probably just wait on that. And yeah, there's some others, but those are the big ones. As for the overall market, where we're at technically, so those are some big picture thoughts. Overall, it's just a week that I think will be important to kind of navigate how we've done similarly to how we've been doing, and that is being pretty tactical. There should be a lot of opportunity this week, so I would encourage everyone to be patient. If you see an opportunity, then you're like kind of unsure about it, it's probably best to just skip it. Wait for higher conviction trades, because there's likely going to be a good amount of opportunity with everything going on. So there's no need to really force things. I think earlier in the week could be a bit trickier. It wouldn't be surprising if we gap up and chop around because of what is ahead. We have FOMC ahead, and then very large earnings mid to end of week. So the front half of the week could be quite choppy, maybe a little bit more difficult, unless you're already positioned and catch some of the gap, right? So be patient, stay nimble. That's the theme for the week. Technically, I would like to see the market hold dips, above this previous all-time high. There is a gap fill spot here on the 6750 that could play out as a little bit of an overthrow. This is our current support. So this previous all-time high to 6764 to 6750, that is what we're looking at as our support to defend this momentum leg of the trend. If that continues to hold, things look well. Again, we will be likely gapping up, so we'll just have to kind of wait and see how things look. If we hold a gap up, so if we don't gap and fade, I would be targeting the 6870 to 6900 before pulling back or seeing some kind of resistance. So that's the overall market technically, what we're looking at. Let's get right into some of the ideas. A little bit of a shorter list this week. I went through a lot of charts as well as Space Monkey, and there's just a lot of earnings and whatnot. So I think, it's going to end up being something that we'll be pivoting a lot to, and we're likely going to get a big gap. So a lot of what we're going to, talk about is, bigger picture. What's important is just sticking with leaders and then pivoting to whatever, is relatively strong or shows a good setup. So I wanted to kind of, touch on or call out some of the leaders, and that's the bigger point for the watch list this week that I want to make. So with that said, let's just dive straight into this, and then we'll wrap it up. So AMD is up first. AMD has been a leader within the market and tech in particular. Big change in behavior since this big gap up on news. And what I mean by that is the range of the daily candle. So this is moving much better than it was in this range. Notice how small the ranges were for the stock. Now it's a lot different. New money is here. This is moving really nicely. So over this high is a simple continuation trade. So I'd be targeting 260 over 253. Pretty straightforward and simple. Apple has earnings, but I wanted to keep it on the watch list because it's been very resilient on dips, and you have this really nice basing here just below its most recent all-time high, and you, I think, can see a bit of a run-up into earnings this week. So this is a trade idea that I would be more so interested in early in the session, tomorrow, or early in the week in general, to kind of set up a run-up into earnings. So premiums will be a bit inflated on an idea like this. You'd want to really see this break the highs and not look back and get caught up in any kind of consolidation. You'd want to see a quick move to 267, possibly more, to to kind of justify holding for that idea and being able to scale out into some profit. BABA is interesting. This one should gap up as well. It's obviously sensitive to the U.S.-China talks on trade. So this one, I don't know, where we're going to open, but we did catch a nice entry. We entered here on this dip. I believe it was here, right? Yeah, we entered here on this it was Thursday, October 16th, and then we had a gap down that followed, but then it looked like, really great timing on the swing re-entry, and we ended up selling a bit back lower. It's in somewhat of a bear flag, but bear flag isn't important unless it breaks. The bigger picture is it's just holding its trend, right? So you throw the EMAs on there, makes it a little easier to see. It's just kind of coiled off of the trend, the bigger EMAs, and is pushing higher and now likely to gap up. This one does have trouble holding gaps a lot of times, but the bigger picture is what I'm mostly interested in here. So we just have to kind of see where this opens. I wanted to just put it on everyone's radar because we do have the catalyst, and this should be a good mover tomorrow. So I'm not sure where this could open. It could open much further than I expect, or maybe less. But one thing is for sure, I am interested in how it looks tomorrow morning. 177 is obviously big resistance here. And then 182.78 above that sends us back up to these highs. Big picture, if you go out to the weekly, I do expect and am anticipating, as long as things hold in the overall market, that this is going to trend well into the 200s into 2026. So I have maintained the position that I want to keep a core position in BABA for the foreseeable future. All right, IBM is next. So obviously huge move last week. This was an incredible opportunity on day two. I'm a little bummed I missed this, but caught a great trade on Google nonetheless on Friday. This is a very, very big move. This is a great example of shorts getting caught off sides on this, gap down recover, and then just kind of blew through the range here, made new all-time highs. The thing with trading it where it's at now, I'll make this very, very simple, is for the momentum to stay and to participate in active momentum, you want to see it hold above this range. So if it can break back above Friday's high, that keeps the momentum alive. If it doesn't, though, you risk getting caught in an inside day or just some consolidation that might take a few days to set up. But if it holds above this, there's no reason not to believe that this can continue its momentum and push higher. So I'll be targeting 315, 322 next above if we see that push. Again, we might just gap up and make this a bit trickier, which could be, back test and turn entries or something, but we don't know until we actually see where it's at in the pre-market tomorrow. Regardless, it's a leader and is having some active momentum, so want to make that in front of everybody, get to kind of keep our attention on the leaders. So the next would be Palo Alto. So when I was looking at software got some love last week. Not a ton of momentum per se, but they do look good. They made some nice moves in cybersecurity and some of the other software names that are out there. Crowd in particular had a really big day on Thursday, a bit of a digestion day, which I do like this setup as well. The reason for Palo Alto, which I'm interested in both of those, is that we had this previous all-time high break that was really kind of tough, and it didn't really get anywhere. It had one really nice day, and then just gave it all back. But that was only to back test this and create a trend, and now it's right back to the highs. So on the second attempt, after kind of firmly establishing itself higher, I like this even better than last time at the all-time high break. So you're well over 210. We tested and validated this all-time high and are now positioned to where if we can break that, we should get some nice momentum to the upside to 222 next if this sector continues to see some strength. All right, that's pretty much it. I didn't mention the trade idea on SPX. We did talk about it. The trade idea I have posted is a 6850 call over 6800. That's just kind of a broad way of saying as long as we're holding above 6800, we'll have to see where the gap is. If we gap and hold, I'd be targeting a move up to that 6870 area. And then, if we fade, I'm not even really interested in the fade or puts because we have pretty big support into here, unless it's set up really nicely off the open or in the gamma profile supports it. I would just rather focus on other areas for now. We are at about 15 minutes here. So that's all I wanted to go through. Hopefully that helps you get prepared for the week ahead. We'll keep it brief here and not belabor it. Have a great rest of your weekend, and I'll see you all in the room tomorrow.